Division Leaders co-host in this Week 10 preview. First-time guest, for the season at least, AB joins me. AB, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great, leading my division, coming for that number one spot that you hold, and I got a pretty good path on the way to do that.
Well, as far as number one spots go, you've already secured that in your division. The two-game lead. It'll be rather hard to lose that even though Clap 4 has McCaffrey coming back. I just want to ask right out the gate, is there any way in hell that Spencer comes back and wins this division from you?
Spence, the 3-6. Who's he playing this week?
He's playing Sea Goucher, real important game for both of them.
Spencer doesn't have a chance to come back.
Okay. So we can go ahead and move on to talking about last week because I feel like that's if we get that out of the way, that's the way the show flows best. So very predictably, I get firing squatted here by Spence. Really not much to say. Basically, any chance I had was doomed whenever this Justin Jackson fella on the Chargers got hurt without getting a single point. That was a nail in my coffin, and if you look at the other stuff here, it was just a pretty predictable loss. There's not much to be said. Spencer had Thomas. As far as Thomas goes, he didn't do that well, and that was a little weird because the Saints just obliterated the Bucks. I mean, did you see that game? Obviously, they ran a lot because they
Yeah, it
established a
was.
lead.
I picked up AB, so I was super into it, and the game was unwatchable.
Oh, it was so disappointing.
Yeah,
And not only did I think the Bucks would do well, which was obviously like incredibly wrong, I thought that it would be entertaining. Wasn't really invested in it like fan wise, but you turn
uh,
on a game like that, it's the prime time matchup. Everyone's excited, big names, Tom Brady on his new team, and what happens? It's a fucking bloodbath.
yeah. No one was going into that expecting Brady's worst game of his career.
Absolutely brutal. So we can move on and talk about Lily losing to Kevin, who of course had C-Mac come back and essentially hard carry his team. Tyler Lockett failed to perform because Metcalf popped off, Eric Ebron found the end zone, and Lily's team at the bottom did very poorly.
It's wild. You see C-Mac and his defense and his other running back are the only ones who broke 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lily really underperformed on the bottom.
And if we look at her bench, Will Fuller, he's the Texans' leading receiver, even though the Texans are sort of considered a run-first team. I don't think you really have to think so much that way since Bill O'Brien has left. They're definitely going to be more balanced. So Will Fuller leads the Texans in yards, and he's the number one guy. Remember, Hopkins is gone, long gone at
Hmm.
this point, it feels like, for Texans fans. So would love to see her start Fuller if she wants to win. Obviously, I want her to lose, but just in terms of a best lineup type thing.
um, yeah, that was an easy start. I wonder why she benched him.
I think that Robbie Anderson has been getting a lot of looks and she has some faith in him. But as someone who's watched a lot of Carolina, they're not explosive enough for Robbie Anderson to be a guy that I'm comfortable starting. I'm aware that he is ranked 10, but if you look at his recent performances, this is a guy who has a high floor, but he really struggles to have the pop-off game. Really never breaks 10.
Kind of Carolina in a nutshell the past few years.
Yeah, well, in the Bridgewater offense especially. With the Cam offense, a lot of times there were flashes, but to me, I don't have any faith in a Carolina guy outside of the magical white man, McCaffrey.
Yeah, I was about to say, if McCaffrey's back, there's no point.
Yeah, he's back in God tier, but even when McCaffrey was gone, it was like, oh, they just ran it with Mike Davis, and he was also pretty good. Bridgewater, there's no world in which he lights it up or his options are that good. Which
Yeah,
it's sort of funny to see Anderson be top 10 and like you look at his point production and how underwhelming it was. I think that goes to show a mixture of guys like Thomas being injured and AB just now starting, but it's just some disappointment in general as far as receivers go. OBJ getting hurt, as you can attest to. All right, so we can move on. Cameron just getting smoked by
yeah, I
Jackson.
saw that. the bye week start.
Mm.
I don't know if that would have. It definitely wouldn't have saved him, but this is a wild one. Just seeing Jackson take out Cam.
To me, what was interesting was, yes, Janu Smith was on the bench, and the point margin was obviously greater than 9.2. But Janu Smith is on an offense where really only him and A.J. Brown get the looks in the air. And they're obviously on like a really good offense. Tennessee has improved significantly over their tenure of Mariota of 8-8 every single season. Just brutal to watch. Now they're a defense-first team with exceptional special teams, the best punter in the league, and Derrick Henry, who they ruthlessly grind it out with, stylistically similar to Oakland in the way that they like to establish leads and run, and they're very good about not abandoning the run. So I really like to see the Titans play in general, and I think that if you're Cameron and you start A.J. Brown, and Janu Smith is a top 5 tight end of the league rank-wise, he's a guy that gets a lot of red zone looks. Teams stack the box to try to stop Henry. They know they line up in the heavy set, and that gives Smith a lot of looks with bootlegs. And for Cameron to not be starting him in general, forget the bye week. Smith is way better than Higbee. Way better. It's not even close, man. Higbee had one good game all season where he reeled in 3 versus Philly, and Cameron's really just chasing bad points. You've got to start Janu Smith, and not to beat a dead horse, but it's not like there was a freaking out questionable guy, like weird Monday night thing. No, it was a bye. Come on, Cameron. Didn't even optimize the lineup. What do you think,
Yeah,
AB? Fraudulence?
I was about to say, first year in the league, every Sunday morning I see Cam. He obviously optimizes or picks up a player or two. But yeah, this week he just didn't even care to open the app. But I think the wildest take from this is the one to take him down being Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson has the worst record in the league, which is very weird because Jackson historically, I think a lot of people consider to be good. He had that season where he was a total juggernaut. So interesting that Jackson and Aaron both had those incredible seasons where they were challenging undefeated the whole year, and they really fell off afterwards.
Yeah, I don't. After the draft, I went back and watched the draft video a couple times. Like he picks up a lot of, like how I did. I picked up a lot of name brand players, and when I go through his list from like week 1 and 2, like a lot of his players, I couldn't even recognize just being a casual fan. So, with him being such a good owner, he has such a weird and just not overall good lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the running back issue is sort of glaring. And to me, when I look at Jackson's team, this just screams, this is why you do not reach for a quarterback. Because there are so many good quarterbacks out there. You only have to start one. There's not 2 quarterback slots like there are running back slots. So you really just have to think about, okay, I have to fill these certain positions in this roster, and I have to piece together a perfect team, and everyone else is trying to do the same thing and fill the same amount of slots. So when you reach for a quarterback, you deprive the other positions of your team, the running back, the receiving core, and you end up with a team like this where, yeah, Lamar Jackson, MVP, rushing quarterback, everybody loves him, and then the rest of the team, it's just sort of anemic, and it doesn't really have the power to get across the finishing line, no matter how good of an owner you are. I think that if you reach for a quarterback, it has a cascading effect, and we saw that when Ben reached for the other Rodgers last year.
The famous first round pick.
The total panic pick.
I love it. I always give him crap for it. I think if you look at Jackson, maybe his best game this season was maybe 30 points, and he's been hovering around like 18 to 25. And reaching for that, if he didn't reach and he just picked up like an 8th or 9th round or whatever, he would have had like a consistent 14 to 16 point quarterback and would have really exceeded in his RBs and everything else. Yeah, when you look at his fantasy points, like this isn't last season, and teams definitely game plan for him.
Right. If you remember last season, Lamar had the MVP year. He was running all over teams, lots of wishbone, lots of pistol. creative looks. Harbaugh looked incredible. The Ravens looked like the best team in the league. And I actually predicted this. Everyone was pretty much coming out in droves saying, it was sort of like when Mahomes had that 50 touchdown season, and you, among other people, were like, oh, 50
He's gonna.
touchdowns. He's going to double it. It's going to be more. It's just going to
Double.
be even better. Are you kidding me? Did you see him? And people drafted Jackson very early on. And it wasn't just Jackson, it was people in other leagues too. This was a guy that, when people come off of like tremendous record-setting MVP years, their draft average position can get thrown way out of whack, and people can really reach for them. And whenever the running backs, yeah, it's not really a reach because a running back's going to be taken in the first round, but like prime Gronk, prime Kelsey, the Mahomes year that I mentioned that broke Ben's brain, Lamar Jackson, these are all examples of seasons that can cause people to reach, like '05 Vic. Anyway, so Jackson reached and it didn't pay out, and not only is Jackson underperforming, Lamar that is, the rest of his lineup is suffering. So I think we can move on. That pretty much covers Jackson's losses this year and why his team has struggled. He took a big risk on Lamar Jackson and it didn't really pay off. So here you decimated No Fried. You put up 115, which was the highest total. Very well done. Kyler Murray opened up a big old can of whoop ass on Miami's defense, and they still lost. So this game was perplexing because if you watch last TWIF, I was just so low on Miami. I thought Tua was going to have a hard time, and he was 20 for 28 with 2 touchdowns. And he beat the Cardinals, who have looked way better this year than they did last year. And I know you're a big Cliff Kingsbury guy. But what were your thoughts on this game? It was very, very odd.
I just got to say hats off to Tua and the coaching staff. I mean, I know they're testing him because they might pick up another in the draft if it didn't work out. But the Dolphins just took it to him. I'm definitely riding for Kyler and Cliff, but I guess I just didn't game plan well enough, or they didn't perform well enough.
Well, talking about what you said with the coaching, I thought that's a good point because Tua looked sort of shell-shocked in the previous week. Very, very like rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And it really was a good coaching and development strategy because it wasn't just a matter of the Cardinals shit the bed, because look how well Murray did. It was more of a matter of Tua looked way more composed. It looked like he did it Bama and not scared. So that was a really interesting game, and it was lucky for you because usually if your quarterback loses to the freaking Dolphins, like it means he had a bad game.
Yeah, and I also think Hopkins didn't get a lot of catches that game, so that probably hurt them. They probably game planned Hopkins and doubled him up most of the game.
Yeah,
And Kyler was always running that game as well, so the line wasn't holding up, and Tua just got to sit in the pocket a lot of the time.
Yeah. How much now? I'm curious because even a casual college football fan is familiar with like a Joe Burrow and a Tua, because when the Final Four comes around, that's when like the casual fan will watch, usually
Yeah,
hungover after New Year's. So everyone's pretty much familiar with Tua, even though he's only started 2 games. And I just wanted to get sort of your guess, your opinion, your prediction on Tua's future in the NFL. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Is he going to be a Pro Bowler? Is he going to burn out? Like, ultimately, in 20 years, what is Tua's legacy going to look like?
um, I think honestly, I believe like his first 4 years or so be pretty similar to Dak.
Yeah, good analogy.
Um, I don't think like even with Trevor Lawrence and the kid in Ohio State right now, like they're gonna come in number 1 and 2 on the draft, and they're gonna light it up. I don't think Tua is like has a name like those guys or like Patrick or Kyler did. He just seems like a really above average guy, no Joe Burrow type. But I think he's gonna stay with Miami for a while, but probably fade out in 7 or so years.
I think you're dead on in all regards. Miami was absolutely interested in this guy in terms of a long-term investment. This doesn't have that sort of feel that the Josh Rosen era had, where it was like, all right, wink, wink at the fans, we're going to try this guy. And it's like, you guys know this isn't going to work. They were simping for Tua for 2 years. Like before he even blew his knee out and that whole thing happened, oh, they were all over him. They've tanked twice for this guy. Think about that. Tanking twice for the same draft pick. And meanwhile, half the team's like, what are you talking about tanking? We tried our asses off and won those games late in the season, which is true. At the end of the year, Miami had improved so much from how they were at the beginning of last season. And they really deserve credit from the coaching staff to the rest of the team, primarily Ryan Fitzpatrick, who won me my Super Bowl game and was unceremoniously ousted out the back door a couple weeks ago. You've really got a feel for the beard, man. This is a guy who took a team that was basically the laughingstock of the NFL. If you look at like week 4 last year, people were saying the Dolphins were going to be historically bad. And they actually turned out to be just, as they always are, slightly below average. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins going forward? I know you gave a great prediction about Tua, but the Pats are on the decline. Can they challenge the Bills for the division?
Well, to get to your first point, so last year when Fitzpatrick came in, it was mid-season. I think, wasn't it Josh Rosen who was in?
Yes, it was Rosen and then Fitz. That's correct.
I don't think they wanted to bet their future on Rosen ever, because Rosen came over from the Cardinals after they picked up Murray.
Yep.
And Rosen just didn't perform, and now he's on a practice squad, I think, or somewhere. But Fitzpatrick really turned it around, and it's sad to see that he lost his team, as he says. But with exactly how I predicted Tua in his future, they had to give him a shot before this next draft, because they might have like a 10 or 15 range for draft pick this year. But going forward, I don't think they're going to challenge the Bills, at least this year, or they could be challenging the next year. But this year, I think the Bills have it just wrapped up with how poor the Pats are performing.
Yeah.
Just keep testing Tua, because he might have a couple bad games here and there, so you don't really know his future yet. He just had a good one against Arizona.
Yeah. I think your analysis of his career projection is dead on. Like a Dak style guy, Dak type of quarterback, and not a ton of longevity, but he's not going to like burn out or be bad. So I think we can move on. We talked the Dolphins, and I think we're on the same page really. But to wrap up my thoughts on your crushing victory here, this was one of those Tyreek Hill go-off games, and it really compensated for Antonio Brown's lack of production and really just Tampa Bay being throttled.
Yeah, and I was disappointed with Frank Gore's output. I picked him up because they were going versus the Jets. Or, numbers, who did they play?
The Bills. They played the Bills.
The Bills. You know what? I think I probably just picked him up because he was the best slot, because my guy's fucking hurt. Christian really stung me with my trade.
Yeah,
but
you had the bye to deal with.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can move on then.
Okay. So here we have Seagouch versus Benny Boy. His final week of incarceration, he took another L. Nothing old Billy Bean could have done. There's not much on Benny Boy's roster. Allen really popped off after the Bills underperforming. Allen came out and said, "It's on me." And sometimes quarterbacks come out and they say that because it's like an obligation. And so think like Jay Cutler. He comes out and says that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that one's on me." And it's like he has a cig in his mouth, and you don't really believe him. Well, with Allen, you fucking believe him. And he came out and had a Rambo God-tier performance, lit it up, great completion percentage, just lobotomized Seattle's defense. And Ben just didn't really have anything else to follow through. David Johnson was concussed. He didn't get any points before he got in. Philip Lindsay got banged up mid-game. So right then, you're pretty fucked. Like, if both of your top running backs get hurt, yeah, it's going to be tough.
Combined for 5, man.
Yeah, get hurt early. It's not like, halfway through the fourth quarter and they go down and they already have 12, whatever. Man.
Yeah, and then you have Rodgers, who's always putting up big numbers, but surprisingly, that wide receiver over at Jacksonville who gave him 20, I think he got lucky with that wide receiver, but Ben really had no chance with his running backs being out.
Yeah, there's not really much to talk about, I think. Josh Jacobs continues to get the rock pounded to him. Seagouch looks really strong here, top-heavy performance. DJ Chark had a 20-point game without Minshew. I think that's worth noting. The rookie quarterback they started is sort of just passable. I watched his final drive and it looked okay. A little worse than Minshew, but the Jaguars are such a fucking disaster that it's sort of a weird talking point. Like, because
The,
sometimes you watch the Jaguars and, like, yeah, they look kind of average and okay, and they just can't get out of their own way when it comes to actually winning, though.
what's bad for the Jaguars is like I don't know what team to compare it to, but they're always like in it until probably the start of the fourth or midway through the fourth. They look really well throughout most of the game, and then they always just let it go.
Yeah. To me,
Uh,
they're not really well coached and they're not really well disciplined either. Like that, this is one of those teams where I watch and I sort of think to myself, like, there's like palpable dysfunction here that we can't really put a finger on, and it wouldn't surprise me if in 5 years it came out a bunch of stories about, like, yeah, the Jaguars practice facilities are really screwed up, and, like, you hear about like these dysfunctional teams, like they have all these issues. And because if you look at what the Jaguars have on the field, they shouldn't be as bad as they are, especially in that joke of a division.
I think they're definitely a rebuild team, but with how like their quarterback performance is average, but how their running back has turned out, like they don't have a worry with him. And I mean, you got a decent quarterback that you're not drafting, so you can rebuild it a lot. And I think in 2 or so years, like they could be an arguably pretty good team.
It's weird you call it a rebuild because it feels identical. The identity of the team feels identical to the Saxonville team. If you look at the way that they try to run the offense, your guy, they give him the ball nonstop. Robinson, no matter the game script, he's getting 20 plus touches, which is great for you. And that's the same way they use Fournette. Fournette got the ball a lot regardless of game script. And in the same way that a running back who's not a timeshare is extremely appealing as a fantasy owner, those are another very appealing sort of running backs. Guys who are going to get X amount of carries regardless of game script. And those are rare because coaches feel like a fire under their ass a lot of the time, especially if the season's not going well. They fall behind, like, here we go, air it out. They don't want to get in a position where they run and have to have a couple 3-and-outs, and all of a sudden they're in a really bad spot. So,
Sean McVay in a nutshell this year.
yeah. And Sean McVay, I mean, you've heard my thoughts on him in excess, but, like, if you look at the way that he uses his running backs, oh man, it's brutal for fantasy. It is the exact opposite of the Josh Jacobs and Robinson scenario. I was wondering, like, I wonder how Darrell Henderson's working out for Weston, and I looked, and the carries were literally split, like, completely equally 3 ways between Henderson and Akers and Brown. They all had like 8, and it was like, Jesus, that's exactly why I didn't want that guy, even if he is on a good offense.
Week 2 or 3, I got scammed into a trade. I forget by who, but it was for one of their backs who had just put up like 18 week 1. And I traded for him, and I started him like the next 3 games, and I don't think he ever broke 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's probably like Brown or Akers. That's what I'm saying. Is like they're interchangeable. They might as well be the same person because even when you watch them, like none of them stand out.
Yeah. Um, what's the other team that does it? There's one more that just puts. Oh, I think it's the 49ers.
Oh yeah, it is the Niners. A lot of their guys, well, first of all, their offense is better, and I feel like their backs are better too, like Mozart and stuff. But the Niners are a disaster with all their injuries. Talk about a fall from grace. It's
Oh,
almost
no.
incredible to think they went to the Super Bowl.
Week 1, when Arizona beat them, I knew shit was going to go downhill for them because the Arizona was picked to lose by like 8 or 9 points, and they just came and decimated them. So that was the fall was coming early, or winter was coming early with them.
Yeah, and things really have just gotten worse and worse, especially if you look at like the health of their team overall with Kittle and Jimmy G. Like as soon as they get guys back, more go down.
And yeah, one last thing for them, they're going to have a good draft pick, and I don't think Jimmy G's going to have maybe 1 or 2 more years there if he keeps performing how he has this season.
Interesting. I feel like he's a guy whose legacy is going to be very hard to judge. The same for his all these like expatriate like Matt Castle types, like, oh, they're great on the Pats and they go somewhere else and they're sort of okay and then nothing. And a lot of people will sit there and say, well, if only they had had a chance, if only they had had 5 or 6 years to toil away on an above average team. It's like very weird to think about their career.
And it's wild to me the contract they gave Jimmy G, and then once he makes it to the Super Bowl, they run it primarily. And they don't trust his arm, so
Yeah.
there's no value behind him. I don't think. I think he's out in two.
Yeah. And he's had his injury issues. He had the blown out knee early, but it's just very bizarre to me overall just to consider the Niners. There is just so much drop off there, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. They look very efficient in the way that they ran their offense. To me, the Niners' offense was stylistically somewhat similar to the Ravens. A lot of wishbone, lots of running misdirection stuff. They would always keep you guessing. The thing about the Ravens was it was all about the ability for the quarterback to run, whereas the Niners were more about stacking multiple running backs and then using Kittle. And that Niner-Raven game in the regular season was one of the best of the entire regular season last year.
Agreed.
We can move on. I think you, or I guess Christian, has had his due diligence. Here we had a very close, exciting game where Aaron really salvaged a season in a close division and beat someone who is red hot and really needed a win in Weston.
Does this make Aaron number 2 in his division?
We can talk about the divisions right after this, but no, it doesn't.
Okay.
And to start things off, remember, Cam Newton was a Monday night sweat, aka he was waiting on him to play Monday night to win or lose. He was down by, I think, 21, or around there, like 18 or so, and Cam Newton came through and clutched it for him. James Conner shit the bed versus Dallas. This was just like absolute nonsense. He only got 9 touches. If you watch that Cowboy game, it was just such a gross disaster of a game. And it's very apt because the Steelers did everything they could to lose that game. And the Cowboys, if you watch the previous 2 games, or the previous 2 TWIFs, because God forbid you have to sit through those 2 games, or even the highlights of those 2 games. That's how atrocious they were. The Cowboys were that bad. Like, the Cowboys were supposed to get firing squatted so badly in this game. Pittsburgh's undefeated. They look like the freaking AFC favorites. And my God, the Cowboys were basically either ahead or right there, way closer than it was supposed to be the whole game, and they choked it away in the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh really stole one. That could have been a season-changing win for Dallas, a career-defining game for Garrett Gilbert, and they pissed it away.
But Garrett Gilbert did have a night and day difference between him and DiNucci, or whoever the other guy was.
Yeah, Ben DiNucci, clueless.
They're probably gonna look better this week. This Gilbert guy looks like Jacksonville's backup, just decent overall. So
yeah,
the season might come around a little bit, similar to Aaron's season, but they have no hope for really a playoff chance. But I like this new Gilbert guy.
Well, if you remember, it's Garrett Gilbert. He started for UT, sort of like in the post-Colt McCoy era, one of like the long litany of disappointing UT quarterbacks after Colt. So the Cowboys said they were going to go back to the Rocket when he was healthy, but I think if Gilbert starts to like reel off some wins, considering the Rockets' age, they're just going to be like, you're injured, LOL. Like, we're keeping you on the injured list. Like, we're not going to play you. They really could actually parlay Gilbert into a future if they don't want to keep Dak. To me, like, you can just sort of like throw the injury out in terms of like the decision was going to be the same regardless. The Cowboys were going to finish with the shit season and like it was going to be Dak's fault. And that was what happened. The Cowboys were basically completely fucked and looked like a terrible team, one of the worst Cowboy teams in Cowboy history whenever Dak got hurt. Like, delusional Cowboy fans like to think that the Cowboys were on the up, and if only Dak Prescott was able to throw 100 more garbage time passing yards, then yes, they would be right there. And admittedly, the division is such an atrocity and is so laughable that I can see how people think that. But no, Dak was not going to lead this team to the playoffs. And any time you want to consider that the Cowboys could have maybe looked into something, the defense is going to hard limit them from doing anything like that. So, looking
I
into...
think
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
uh, just about Dak. I see him on the way out, man. I showed Jerry selling out all the chips this year to get fucking what's his name from Clemson. But if you look at Dak and his like season-ending injury and unwillingness to take less than $40 million a year,
Yeah.
if he gets Dak out of there, well, if he takes Dak for one more year, it's $38 million. But if he sells out like everything to get whatever Trevor Lawrence,
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence can be signed for 4 years at $34 million. So it's 1 year of Dak, or you can just. I mean, you already have like a number 3 pick this year. So if somehow you can move up to number 1, like I didn't see Dacky boy staying around. You get 4 years of the amazing blonde haired Trevor Lawrence for less than 1 year of Dak.
Well, if they can get him, that'd be phenomenal. I just honestly don't see it happening. I don't think it's in the Cowboys' future. I don't think they'll make a big move like that.
A dream of mine is Trevor Lawrence opting to stay out of the draft just because of how the Jets ruin every single quarterback who's been in there.
For real. I mean, when you see that your future, literally not just your future, like, oh, a year or two, but potentially like your entire life and reputation is going to be staked on the JETS, jokes, 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 and the quarterback whisperer himself, Adam Gase.
Adam Gase.
That is horrifying. I mean, my God, you might fail some classes on purpose. Oh, I need another year, actually.
That's hilarious.
Alrighty, so we can move on because we can give some closing thoughts. CeeDee Lamb actually managed to score, which was sort of like a laughable luck box thing because, remember, the Cowboys hadn't scored a fucking touchdown in 8 quarters, so it was like, big dice roll from Aaron, and it fucking worked. But you can say, like, oh, dice roll from Aaron and it worked, but then, like, he had Connor and Claypool combined for less than 10, and they were supposed to get, like, 30 plus, so...
Yeah, and you got to give it to Cook as well. 2
Yeah.
games back, and he's putting up insane numbers.
That really is the story of this game. Cook had another sensational 200-plus yard game. This is the guy that can drop these, like, 1v9 god-tier performances that just auto-win you the game more than anyone else. And I know I said this shit last week, because he dropped 46 last week. This is what I'm talking about. Look at that bar graph. Look at that fucking lateral y-axis. Holy shit, it goes up to 47. Incredible.
Unreal.
And it's not one of those graphs that's like 47's like the aberration. That's crazy. Anyway,
Good job, Rampy.
yeah, it was a big win for Aaron. One of the biggest points for Weston was Mike Davis going down. Some people speculated that, oh, well, Mike Davis looks so good that he might vulture some C-Mac carries. Not really. You know, C-Mac's still that guy. He's still way, way better than every other running back. I think that because we've seen running backs get overpaid and underperform like Gurley and Zeke, some people sort of earned this camp that you should never ever pay a running back, and running backs are literally all replaceable. They're all the same. You can draft any scrub from college and it's all about the line. And I think McCaffrey is really proving that to be not the case, especially the way that he's used out of the backfield in the passing game too.
Yeah, you can't say any of that about Zeke. So
True. And after Zeke got paid, the effort level really bottomed out. Zeke is one of the only athletes I've ever seen where he has gotten paid and the effort level is just so noticeably different. And I know a lot of athletes, like, it's sort of like a thing, like they get paid and they coast and the contract year comes up and they really try hard, but this is awful. Like, Zeke looks like it's not just when the Cowboys are bad and he's getting like obliterated and he gives up. A lot of the times he shows up not ready to play. This is a guy that shows up with the malaise in his eyes. He's got that fucking repulsive septum on, which, like, he should be strong like an ox with that septum on, but The guy's soft. I mean, he doesn't look like he has any desire to win. He doesn't look like he wants to pound the rock with the same authority and eat like he did before. It's been immensely disappointing to be his fantasy owner this season.
Yeah, interesting to see next year what he'll go first round, but definitely probably not top 7.
Yeah, and like a lot of it'll have to do with the Cowboys quarterback situation. If the Cowboys basically like punt the season, the next season, like if they can't agree with Dak, or they go with like Gilbert, and Gilbert is like middling for this season, or they do another rocket, like there just aren't a lot of good options for the Cowboys, because the crux of the issue is the line. The line is deteriorating into nothing. And that is what a lot of football fans don't understand, is the Cowboys had a god-tier, 5-man, Pro Bowl, scintillating, sensational line, and for 4 years it was pissed away because people were saying, oh, we'll do another year of Dak. Oh, I'll have another Dak. It was like Texas tease, AB. I'll have another. Keep them coming. I'll have another Dak year. Another. And then this year happens. Oh, it's so sad. He turned down the second most money in the league. Jerry's such a jerk for not offering the first. Oh, he's such a mean. And then it's like, guys, did you not see the line? And now it's like the Dalton's getting obliterated. DiNucci looked terrible, and most importantly, Zeke can't do shit. And people sit there and say to themselves, wow, look how great Dak was. As soon as Dak went down, look how bad. Like, people are that stupid. People don't fucking realize it's the line. And they don't put two and two together. Like, no Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin. These guys are gone. And you know what? If this was the 2016 Cowboys line, this would be very easy to just run the ball and get to fucking 8-8 and like win the division just by running it 30 times. But it's not. And we don't even need to go into the defense again, but the Cowboys are a true horror show.
They are, and final point about them is fucking still Mike McCarthy has with the Cowboys. He lied his way into there like I did into my job, saying I had a college degree. Fucking McCarthy, he's a joke.
Well, he's got a big contract too, so he ain't going nowhere. It's like a marriage in Big D. And if you ever listen to 105.3 The Fan or The Ticket or the morning radio in Dallas, you hear of course it's like all they want to talk about is the fucking Cowboys, even in the off season. It'll be 10:30. Coming up at 4 p.m., we got an interview with DeMarcus Lawrence. He's going to mumble through our boring questions. 105.3 The Fan. They do that bullshit all the fucking time and nothing's happening. And they give these awful, tepid interviews. And the season's so bad, they were doing one of these interviews a couple weeks ago, and the journalist was being a pain in the ass. And Jerry goes, I answered your damn question. he snapped at him because the team's doing so shitty. And the fans are mad. That's the point I'm driving at. The Dallas fan doesn't really have anything to look forward to other than Luka Doncic and I guess hockey, but the Rangers and Cowboys, man, are just awful. So we can finally jump into everyone's favorite segment, which is the matchup previews. So we can start over here with a matchup historically dominated by the lowest winning percentage team in the league. That's Cam. For whatever reason, Cameron always does really well against me, and I wasn't surprised to see that he didn't start anyone on bye this time. Cameron might start people on bye, but never against me. He definitely wants to win. And thankfully for me, Tannehill and Brown have already turned in subpar performances.
Yeah, I think you kind of edge it with Tannehill only putting up 10. That's really all I can take away from it.
It is worth noting that Zeke Elliott is on bye, so I don't really have the decision of, who do I start? I'm going with a receiver-heavy combo. Allen and Hopkins, you've got to start. They're number one options. Hopkins gets a ton of targets from Hebert. They're a team that plays from behind a lot, and he is officially over his leg injuries. Hopkins underperformed, but he's still Hopkins. And Tyler Boyd has been the primary target of a pretty good Cincinnati offense. And I think Cincinnati's a little bit better than the record indicates. They have 2 wins.
Oh,
The Cowboys have two
this
wins. Which team is better?
this is who I wanted to compare earlier. Jacksonville always being in it. Like even the Bengals are better in Jacksonville with in terms of always being in it. It
Yep.
seems like Joe keeps getting cucked out of a win in literally like the last 2 minutes of the last 3 games. Joe's like he's the truth. Definitely well worth taking him number one overall. But I really like them this year and like see big things for them going forward.
Well, you love to see these quarterbacks that have so much hype in college, and you see him tear it up on the national stage to the point where he set records and could have run it up and embarrassed his opponents, but he was so good he didn't. And he comes into the NFL and kills it. You love to see that because these college guys, Jamarcus Russell types, Winstons, these amazing athletes that can dominate college opponents, a lot of times they come into the league and they never make it, or even they're massive flops, like in the case of a Ryan Leaf or a Russell. Very highly touted guys, everyone thought were going to pop off and be great.
You know what's so crazy about Burrow and shows how true he is he's the most sacked quarterback in the league,
Wow.
and he just keeps doing it. So
Well, and
yeah,
when you watch Joe Burrow under pressure, even though he doesn't really have that sense of pocket that he's going to obviously develop with a few years, he doesn't look like Daniel Jones, where it's like Daniel Jones looks like he's deaf and plays with blinders on, and like it looks like when Daniel Jones gets hit, he never knows or expects he's gonna get hit. It's like he's walking down the halls with like a book in school, and someone just like knocks the shit out of the book. Like, why would you do that? Like that's as though how he feels about the defenders. He's surprised that they attack the ball and is seemingly never ready for it.
I think he has the most fumbles for a QB in the league, but I love the permanent deer in a headlight looks from him.
Yeah.
It's comical.
Oh, he also loves like when he does actually feel the pressure, his favorite move is just deep ball into double coverage. That's like his go-to, like fuck throwing it away. That's what Danny Dimes does. That's why they call him Danny Dimes. He throws into the two nickels.
I think he's entertaining to watch just because of his facial
Yeah.
expressions and whatnot.
Him and Darnold both sort of have that ghost look to their face. Like they're terrified.
Yeah. Let me see.
One thing that jumps out at me about this game is Chubb is returning, correct? He's
Yep.
coming back this week. So Kareem Hunt's value is going to be slightly diminished, although he was getting a lot of the goal line looks. And they do run it on first down a lot as a rule, so he does get a lot of those looks too. Surprisingly, Hunt doesn't really have as many touchdowns as you would think he would have on the ground this year. But this really something to look forward to in terms of matchup. You can see that Hunt has more, I was correct. Hunt has more receiving touchdowns than he does rushing, which is sort of odd when you consider he's like the ground and pound guy.
He came from Kansas City, though, so I think that's just why they use him for that.
That's a good point. And interestingly, Ronald Jones, 2 weeks ago he had fumbleitis and got benched. Last week they got obliterated and were never in a position to run the ball at all with anyone. Fournette didn't get looks either. So this is going to be like defining game V2 for Ronald Jones because the Tampa Bay New Orleans game was such a shellacking. I'm sure like the Tampa Bay players like straight into the memory hole. Like don't even watch the film, like move on, pretend it never fucking happened. Like
This is like the bad thing for Tampa is it's kind of like when what's his name went to the Golden State Warriors from OKC. Like they just Durant. They keep adding these best in slot players who had no chemistry together, and like with the Chiefs, they have all these best in slots as well, but they all have like connection and history and like Mahomes. These guys know to keep running. But for Brady, like they just plugged in all the best in slots, and no one knows what's coming.
I think there's some truth to that. I think that Brady is like such a good leader of men and has a long history of being able to bring up guys around him. I mean, famously, this is a guy who just had like one above average slot receiver and then would just have random scrubs like Brandon LaFell he would make them look great. But I do see what you mean with Tampa. It's like an embarrassment of riches. They just keep adding guys. And part of me wonders, like, is there a point where, like, you have too many weapons or you can't game plan properly? And another thing I wonder is, since it was Antonio Brown's first week, were they really trying to, like, okay, we have to get AB the ball. We're gonna game plan around AB. This is gonna be AB's week. Like,
After picking up AB and watching that game, like my conclusion at the end of it was like AB was a total smokescreen for teams to game plan over AB, and then they just move it everywhere else.
well, hopefully they figure that out and use him, because there's really no way you should be able to cover both AB and Evans. It really shouldn't be possible.
Hoping a lot better for AB this week and the team overall, because that loss last week was embarrassing. If they can't get it done against Carolina, I mean, I don't think they have a real Super Bowl shot.
I agree with you, but I do think that they will beat Carolina. I'm pretty confident about that. Carolina looked pretty good with McCaffrey, though. Like, Carolina without McCaffrey is like a 4-win team. Like, Bridgewater is the sort of guy that will come in and not embarrass you. He's sort of like a manager at Chili's. Like, he'll come in and make sure that, like, everything is, like, not fucked up too bad. But in terms of being able to, like, actually do something impressive, like, nothing's there. It's not going to happen. So with Bridgewater, the Panthers' ability to do any damage in the playoffs or even win the fucking division is highly limited. Now, with McCaffrey there, you can make an argument that, yeah, maybe they go up to like an 8 or 9 win team, but this isn't like the Thomas Beeson prime Luke Kuechly defense. This is like a pretty average defense, frankly. So Carolina isn't able to grind people down in the same way they were before, and to me, like, the Teddy Bridgewater era is like a stopgap would be one way to put it. Another way of putting it, which I like better, is putting a horseshit product on the field. That's what I would call signing Teddy Bridgewater.
Closing it out, I just hope, for your sake, Hopkins gets more looks this week than last, but I still edge you over Cameron this week.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Vikings versus the Bears is sort of like a middling start. The Bears just aren't very explosive, and they're fucking horrible on the ground. David Montgomery is awful.
I want to see them send back in what
Big Dick
Trubisky.
Mitch. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what?
that's-
You know what I want to see is I want to see them do the infamous double quarterback. Like, AKA, like, we don't have a starter, we do quarterback by committee, which, by the way, has literally never worked. But, so instead of actually just, like, mixing them up, like quarterback by committee, you have both of them in every set, and you, like, line one of them out as a wide receiver decoy. Like, you have to gimmick that offense up so badly, because they have no running game. So you always have Foles lining up as a wideout or Trubisky, and then you do fake screens to him and shit. Like that play where Jay Cutler was like standing on the side with his hands on his hips.
What you're saying is so true, and I picked up one of their running backs this week, and only because he had like 5 catches and a touchdown last week, and he was like their number 1 RB.
Oh, Montgomery's terrible. They could like pull a guy off the street that would be better than Montgomery. And they give it to him so much. It's weird. Like the Bears are another one of those teams where you look at what they have on paper and it's like, how did y'all fuck this up? Like, not that they're bad. I mean, they have, I think, 5 wins, but
One of my favorite clips of all time was the Chiefs versus the Bears, and Patrick Mahomes runs it in for a TD and runs back to the camera and counts on his fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because Pat was the 10th pick, and the Bears traded up for Mitch.
yeah, Trubisky.
When they could have had, like, that's where it all went wrong.
Yeah, and like not just they went with Mitch instead of they traded up for him. Traded up for him, Mitch.
This fucking guy's sitting on his side. They traded up for the guy who had 1 starting season in college.
Yeah.
What a joke.
It is sort of funny to like consider people's college careers, especially if you're not like an average college football fan and like you don't really remember them per se or aren't familiar with them. Especially smaller school guys. Like Mariota, for instance, like for years and years I would think like, why are the Titans so committed to Mariota when he's so clearly below average? And it was like, oh, he had like all those seasons with like insanely Dick Road Oregon where they like went to the title game. Okay, well, no wonder. But yeah, I think I'm gonna beat Cam. Let's move on. No Fried and Lily. I mean, Lily's gonna clobber him.
Yeah.
We we
No Fried still has a guy on bye, I think.
He's gonna put Bridgewater in, but still, even then, like Fournette'll be worth watching because it'll be interesting to see if him or Jones gets the carries. But other than that, this is just, in my opinion, like really damn boring. Lily already had a shit tier running back put up 24, so no Fried's
Um,
buried.
yeah, No Fried's buried, and the only thing I like about his team this week is, well, basically his team in general, besides Pat Mahomes, is the DK Metcalf.
Yeah,
Dude is a monster.
yeah, big deep threat.
Uh, yeah, he's really entertaining to watch, but that's the only thing that's fun about his team right now or for this week. But he's about to get crushed.
Yeah, well, we move on. All right, Clap 4 and Weston, really important
Big
game.
game.
This is one of those games we can go ahead and peek at the division. We see that I'm at 7-2 leading. Gouch is one game behind, and then one game behind Gouch is both Lily and Weston. So Lily and Weston are in a brutal spot where they are gonna have to win a bunch in a row, and then like get lucky with tiebreakers too. So if we scroll down and see the rest of it, well, lots of 4 and 5 action, and then go Cam at 5 and 4, which I feel like that division is about to turn into a fuck fest. And then finally, Clap 4 is 2 games behind you. Oh,
Yeah.
one game rather. You're 5 and 4. He's 4 and 5. So going back to the game that we're previewing.
Let's see who they have.
Well,
Oh, Henry only got him 11.
yeah. It's one of those weird, like, oh, 100 yards, that's great. And then, well, he didn't find the end zone, and all of a sudden, it looks like a Joe Mixon game without that touchdown in there.
Yeah, and
Julio's on bye, dude. That's like and Kelsey. Like, this is a week where Clap 4 has to beat Weston. Weston has his star tight end, star receiver on bye, his best defense on bye, and he's locked in, not bad stuff, but like not a pop off, and I feel like he sort of needed a pop off to come somewhere else. Henry's locked in for 10, right? Well, he's starting Mike Davis, who's gonna get like less than 5 for sure, because McCaffrey's completely healthy, and Darrell Henderson, who we both know like isn't that good. And this is the week where Weston has to fall. This is the week where if Clap 4 really wants any chance at the playoffs, this is a must-win game. Must-win game.
I think so too, and this game just seems kind of boring overall, to be honest. I think it's going to be neck and neck.
Holy shit, McCaffrey's out. What? Okay, I didn't realize that. McCaffrey's out.
What's it say?
McCaffrey's shoulder can return for week 11. McCaffrey has
Oh,
held out of
God.
practice and has been ruled out. That's insane.
So he's got McCaffrey out, and
Well,
the other.
that's a huge swing because then Mike Davis goes from being like shit to good. Wow. What a joke. How insane is it that like I need Weston to fucking lose, or like want him to lose, I guess, and that for I play Clap 4 and it's just so goofy. Anyway, so Mike Davis is actually going to be pretty good, and all of a sudden I think that like God, I think that like Clap 4 is favored by like a point.
I don't know if I'm going to give it to Clap for, man. This might won't go to Johnny.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Look at these fucking running backs, dude.
I can't believe Caffrey's back out again. Jesus Christ.
Well, and it's weird that it would be like a 1 weeker. It's not like, oh, he re-injured the old injury and he's out for the year. It's like he did really well last week. Also, he's out. So that's fucking wild. I didn't see that. All right, so I'm glad we caught that. All right, let's move on. Here we have this. See, like this is why this part of the season is exciting because these are like make or break games for a lot of these teams. Not in like a literal like elimination sense, but in a very real like chance for the season sense. So this is a
But
rivalry matchup. These two guys talk a lot of shit and don't like each other.
I think it's funny the mirrored like wins and losses. But Christian, if he doesn't win, then Lily's tied with Christian. So
Yeah, Lily and Weston are right on Seagouch's heels. They're a game behind. And Spencer's sort of at a I need to win the rest of my games to have a chance point in the season. So if we look at this matchup, one thing that jumps out at me right out the gate is Aaron Rodgers is facing terrible Jacksonville, and he's going to have a great game.
he's got Keenan Drake too. He's gonna get a lot of looks. Josh Jacobs also.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like the Vegas is going to get a lead on Denver. Not that it matters like we talked about before, but I do feel like Jacobs is going to have a good game. I feel like he's due for about 16.
yeah, and Shark, if he does half of what he did last week for Jacksonville, like I think this is an easy dub for Seagouch.
And I think it's a great sign that Sharks seem to have so much rapport with the rookie quarterback. You've got to love that if you're Christian, especially when if you saw how he was doing with Minshew, it was extremely hit or miss, very like disappointing stuff. So that's a big upswing for Christian.
Um,
Michael Thomas and Adams are back. Remember, this is something that Spencer
y-
was always talking about.
yeah, not only that, and Jared Goff is going against Seattle's defense, so that's a big game
Yep.
if he can air it out at least.
I feel like the Rams are rapidly approaching the like having too many weapons to be consistent on fantasy spot. I feel like they're about 20% less lethal than they were the Super Bowl year, and that 20% is a big enough deal when you consider like how much spreading out of assets there are.
Um, I want to see what Michael Thomas does, but I think this one, imagine Christian for sure.
You're feeling the gouch on this one?
I think he's going to win by like 20.
Wow. So I feel like
Just
Sanders is going to have a big game. David Johnson got banged up last week, and Spencer has Duke Johnson, and they're playing Cleveland, so I feel like he'll get 10. Cooks and Thomas are both going to have great games, two good matchups. I'm actually going to go with Spencer on this one.
Spence. For your sake. I hope Spence wins, but I don't know if he's going to pull it out.
Well, I think with Tucker facing off against New England and him having the Redskins against pretty hapless Detroit, I think even though Gouch is definitely formidable, I'm going to edge Spence. I think if Aaron Rodgers is sort of blocked by Adams, so usually if Rodgers has like a go ham game, Adams is having a really good game as well. So
It might depend on if Chark can get some points this week.
that's true. That Green Bay Jacksonville game will be great for both Spencer and old Goucher to watch. That one have a huge impact
Do
on
you
the game.
do you have his Excel sheet pulled up? Can we get the numbers?
I don't have access to the current numbers. Spencer has a plethora of numbers, and I know that he is working with them right up until noon, usually on Sunday morning. So maybe when he guest stars again, he can show me the numbers. What were your thoughts on Spencer's like pre-draft rankings and his numbers overall? Now that we have a bit of like retrospective.
My favorite part, well, uh, not my overall thought, but my favorite from it is Spencer giving himself number one and him being the worst in the or second worst, I should say. But um, just from how everything's panned out, the numbers don't mean shit. And the first week in my first year being in the fantasy, when I saw like my grade he gave me, I was like, well, shit, this is gonna be a terrible year. But I'm never gonna watch those numbers again. It's all a waste of time, to be honest.
Do you think they have comedic value at least? Like, do you like
Hmm.
to? Okay, there you go.
The
So,
comedic value, Spence giving himself number one and being number 11.
Well, I like Spencer's numbers. I like the little bit of flavor they add to the show.
Oh, I appreciate and respect the effort, and it's cool someone takes the time to do it. But there's little value behind it.
It's like the seven. It's like KFC's seven spices. Like Spencer's seven spices of his fantasy team. A little bit of Thomas, a little bit of Adams. Not much post on the message board though.
Once the losses start coming in, it gets real quiet.
Yep. Alrighty, so we reviewed that one, and we can move on. Actually, I want to do that one last. Let's move on to Rampy and Jackson. This one is not that interesting because only one team is really in it. Jackson is oddly, because it's week 10, the only person out. Usually by week 10, like 2 or 3 people are pretty fucked, but because one of the divisions has like all the good teams and then 2 of the divisions are pretty fucked, it makes this weird scenario where everyone's still in it and a lot of the games are really interesting. So Lamar Jackson is going to pop off. Sunday night, I'm telling you, New England looks hapless. I think they're only going to win like 6 games this year. New England looks really bad.
Uh, just looking at these lineups, this one is interesting. I don't know. I like Jackson's team overall more.
I think Jones will have a big game. I mean, like we said, Jacksonville's pretty hapless.
Christian Kirk's been a go-to guy recently too.
Yeah, basically when Hopkins gets shut down, he gets the looks, and because Arizona has such an explosive offense, he'll get the points. And in general, what happens is even when Arizona struggles, they still put up points. Like they more struggle on defense and they get into shootouts and lose. So
Yeah, it's the exact same thing like Texas Tech. Like
yeah.
they're still gonna put up the numbers, but they're always gonna lose. But
Singletary has plummeted in value because of Zach Moss. He's been so bad this year compared to what he was.
Jesus, those points.
Yeah, it's just basically he's going to get you like 3 to 6. And I
And
just
Claypool's been getting shut out as well.
yeah. Aaron's beloved Calvin Ridley on bye. The Falcons being on bye is going to have impact on 2 games tremendously this week.
Yeah, this one's another kind of boring game. I hope for Aaron's sake he wins, because then he'll be number 2 in his division. But maybe would he tie number 1 if he wins and number 1 loses?
Three
Maybe.
of the teams are 4 and 5 and one of the teams is a win above that. So it's like a complete fuck fest.
So if Aaron wins, he could tie for first.
Yeah,
So
he's right there.
for his sake, I hope he wins. But I don't know. I'm giving it to Jackson here.
Yeah, to me, a few things that jump out, other than the fact that both of these teams, I think, on paper, like, don't look all that strong this week, actually. Aaron's riding with Claypool. And
Look at that, the 27 and then just a drastic drop.
yeah, I think
Till
that,
10.
to me, like, I just don't know how much longevity there is in Claypool. I still kind of have the feeling like he's a flash in the pan. Although, after how the Pittsburgh Steelers looked against the Cowboys, I think in general, like, I'm not nearly as high on Pittsburgh as I was. Like, they almost lost to the fucking Cowboys. That was like a really, really poor performance. Dalvin Cook is not going to have another 30-plus game. He's playing the Bears defense, and I think that's going to be a defining factor. But I do think that Aaron will be able to take the victory, actually.
I think Lamar, if he pops off and gets 30, then I think Jackson secures it. But might be a neck and neck one here.
Agreed. Another close one, even if it's not that interesting. Speaking of interesting, we finally can move on to the creme de la creme. We got you versus Benny Boy. So you can go ahead and take the lead on this one. What do you think are like the key factors? What are you really going to be watching for?
I think the most entertaining thing overall, not just the key factors, but it's Kyler Murray versus Josh Allen, and that's a real game. That's the entertaining part of it. And also we have a lot of the same positions playing at the same teams, um, like Jerry Jeudy or Philip Lindsay or whatever. Not same positions, but we both have players
Right,
on the
mirror
same teams.
matchups.
So Ben and I at home watching all day today are just gonna be shit talking like no other because we're both rooting on our guys to get the touches instead. I think that's gonna be just really fun in house for us.
Yeah, that'll be
But
great.
um, I think I have this one easily.
Really, easily even.
Um, yeah, just going through it. I don't know. Chubb's gonna share time, and it's his first game back. I don't know if they're gonna want him to get hurt. Uh, I'm in love with all my players. Really, I just think I have it here. And just a shot at Spencer. I sent you some fun stats about my team before this started. Uh, Not that these people are necessarily playing, but I have the number one wide receiver in the league, the number two tight end who's playing, the number two quarterback, the number four running back, the number four kicker. Uh, if the numbers at the beginning of the season meant shit, I would be losing this handedly. But I think those are fun little stats about the guys I've picked up and traded for. Uh,
You've
this
certainly
one's
been
just,
wheeling and dealing.
yeah, I think this one's just the most entertaining just because of the matchups and us being in house together.
Yeah,
But
it's also two good teams and playoff implications, so a great matchup.
yeah, and the goofy kicker Ben's whatever his first name
Rodrigo
is,
Blankenship.
got
Goggles.
Mr. Goggles. He got him some good points,
Yeah.
and if any of my guys shit the bed, Rodrigo could have sealed that for him.
Yeah. I loved him at Georgia. Like I love Rodrigo and the
Is that where he's
goggles.
from?
Yeah, well, I don't know where he's from, but that's where he went to college. Cuz
Did
like
he rock the goggles in college?
oh, of course. That's like the only reason I knew and identified with him is like out of like the three people I remember from college football every year, he was one of them. The goggles.
It would be pretty funny, like with Jacksonville, how Minshew's mustache is like the fans will wear fake mustaches. I would love to see like the fans in Indiana just wear goggles.
Yeah. Especially because fucking Phillip Rivers can't consistently get them in the end zone, so they're always having to kick field goals.
Yeah, he got it good there. I don't know, real interesting. One of us could put up the most points this week too, just depending on Murray's output and Robinson.
Yeah.
Uh, this one's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, in general, this is an interesting week in terms of like the actual matchups within the league, like the Arizona Buffalo game, especially. I feel like Tampa Carolina is going to be really good, but my God, it sucks that McCaffrey's hurt. I can't believe that he got re-injured. That's crazy.
I wonder if he just had like a sore shoulder or something, and they're paying the guy a dickload of money. They got to keep him safe whenever they can.
Yeah, part of me has like and like obviously I don't have any like true inside info on this, but part of me has like a sneaking suspicion, and like I would be worried that like there would be that like this gets worse, the news, like that they come out in a week and it's like, oh, it's like worse than we thought, we're gonna shut him down, or like it's like a separation or whatever. Like it's just very odd, I guess. But yeah, that game really goes down in value without McCaffrey, especially because the boring ass Bridgewater Panthers have basically been putting on their shit tier display without him week after week. People are tired of it.
True. The wildest thing for me on my team on this one is I had no idea about how every week I question even starting my tight end, and then if you click on him, like I had no fucking well, I guess yours shows three. When I was checking earlier, it showed him as number two. Like this guy's been putting up points. For a tight end, just to consistently bring in 10.
Lots of touchdowns.
Yeah, he's a go-to guy in the red zone, so that's good for me.
Well, Stafford
But
doesn't have anyone else to throw to.
this is his first year in the league. He just was drafted, but hopefully I get some good output for him versus Washington. I think I get Ben by 15 this game.
Wow.
But if not, a defining factor could be Rodrigo. I think it's pretty funny.
The droopy 10. He's going to dunk on you with those goggles, AB.
I just hope. Also, my pickup before the podcast, I picked up that running back in Chicago. He put
Yeah.
up points. He put up points last week, and I had another guy in. I forget who I had, but
No.
yeah, he had 1 point consistency. But I mean, if he gets some looks, Knock could be that factor for me too for losing if he doesn't do shit.
Yeah, I think that's a likely fucking factor.
I mean, I don't know. It's a real interesting game.
I think it really sucks for you that not only is Tyreek on bye, but Mixon is
Shit,
out. That just is brutal.
It's like every trade I've made this season is they're all out or just perform terribly.
Yeah, OBJ.
I think I've gotten out of all my trades, like I've gotten to start someone I traded for twice.
Oh my god, that's awful. Dude, you could
I've made like 4 or 5 trades and I've only gotten 2 games out of just any one of them.
you could be the Texas Rangers GM with a record like that, my dude.
Yeah, I get made fun of for my bad trades, but if these guys could just stay healthy, I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did trade for OBJ. You know what I mean? Like he was never gonna stay healthy.
I love the 1 week after I play him, he had bad points. I questioned starting him again. Started him, he gets hurt quarter 1. Out
Yeah.
for the season.
That's why I never ever draft him. Inevitably, someone will always like take him in like the first 3 rounds. I wouldn't fucking draft him till like the 6th because like he gets hurt every year.
Previous TWIF videos, you've mentioned like your 2 stay away guys from in early rounds are Joe Mixon
Yeah, the guys you traded for.
and ironically Ben picked like these are both Ben's players, OBJ and Mixon, and he traded them away as fast as he could, and I ended up with both of them, which is pretty ironic. But
It sucks that he is out when you play Ben. It's sort of fitting, I suppose.
this actually, just looking more into it, if Juju doesn't get a touchdown, Antonio Brown shits the bed again, and Nall gets like 2 points, this one's easily winnable for Ben.
Yeah, I'm definitely favoring Ben because
Yeah.
Hunt's coming back, Chubb's coming back. They're going to give him looks in the offense, and I think that Allen and Edmonds are going to be in like a shootout, and Scary Terry's playing a bad defense, and Philip Lindsay's not injured. So I actually think Ben will probably beat you by 10.
I think I was high off my own shit just coming into this because of those. It was really sticking it to Spencer.
You were so hyped on dunking on Spencer. You're still hanging on the rim. You're like,
Yeah,
shit, Nick Chubb's
I'm
back.
like, I'm not even looking at my guys compared to Ben's, but now just looking at it, it's like
In your head.
it's like I right when you click this game, I thought it's like me versus Spencer. I just gotta get
Exactly.
these numbers out and shit on him, but this one's actually going to be a really good game.
You're like, all right, now that I've verbally vanquished Spencer, I'm gonna actually look at the matchup and oh shit, this
And
is not good.
no matter how much I shit on Spencer, I love the guy and love playing poker with him and really respect him. But this one's kind of scary now that we're looking at it.
Yeah, well, it's all in good banter. We're obviously like not being mean or anything. So, I do think you are gonna go down, and it's gonna like launch the absolute biggest like division cesspool fuckfest ever. This is gonna be like on those last days of the season when teams are tied and no one's played, and there's like a tie already, and the network has to be like, all right, so if this team loses and this team loses, then this team needs them to win, and they have to win. This team controls their own destiny, but if they win, and it's like they do all this shit, like that is going to be this division. And inevitably, Christian is going to be complaining about the tiebreaker format when it doesn't favor him, just like he complained about the Super Bowl payout last year.
My favorite meme for the league is my division always being referenced to the NFC East, and I think that's like if I lose and Clap Force somehow wins, we are the NFC East. Jesus Christ.
Well, you've got to love the fact that, like, hilariously, if you lose and Clap 4 wins, and like Cameron loses, which is likely, and like No Fried or Aaron wins, which is almost certainly one of those will happen, like, holy shit, then suddenly the division of death we've been clowning, both of the divisions have like 5-5 division leaders, and they're real murky, with essentially only Jackson being out of it.
The only thing I'm glad for if I win or lose is that I have a close matchup this week, and I have like some of my best players on bye week. So I'm confident about the future for my team, but this week could be up in the air.
Yeah, I feel like the Hill. I don't feel like the Gnaw guy is just not gonna do shit. I just like that's just such like a brutal like
It's
I
a,
got an injury type plug in.
you know what? Trust me, I've looked at other RBs.
Oh, there's not much out there, I know.
There's, yeah, so
A guy like Lev Bell would be looking like a 10 out of 10 right now.
kind of rolling with the punches with that guy, but this is going to be a fun game.
Yeah. Alright, so that concludes this week's TWIF episode. Make sure you like the video. Easy.